In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Durge from the Realistic Clone Wars line. I mentioned in my review of the comic pack Durge, these two action figures right here, that I did plan to get both the single release, the one you're looking at here, and the Durge with the swoop bike at some point. And shortly after I filmed that video, it's when I got on eBay and I happened to see a good deal for this action figure. It was only about $15, and plus just a few more for shipping, which for either of the Durge action figures, that's pretty good. You're really not going to find much better than that in today's world. Most of the time when I've been shopping around for this particular Durge on eBay beforehand, which I've been doing for probably about a year now at this point, most of them are like $25 plus, which I thought, it's a little steep for the action figure, but I thought 15 was perfect. And of course the swoop bike one is a little bit more than that. About the best prices I can usually find are maybe 30, 35. So at some point down the road I will go ahead and get that one as well. But I'm very happy to add this particular Durge to my collection. Like I said, no action figure channel about Star Wars is complete in my opinion without Durge. He's one of my favorite characters from all of Star Wars, especially from the Clone Wars. And as a fan of the original Clone Wars, I think he's an essential character to have. So the noted thing about this action figure, compared to like the swoop bike figure, is this one definitely has a much more, or a lot more accessories with him, at least for on his person. But he is a little bit more limited in the articulation department. But I don't think that's going to be much of a problem for me because it looks like you can pretty much get him in some nice poses as it is. And I think he's only about, he's only 5 POA. But that's not really a problem for me. It's a great looking action figure. It's nice to have a different interpretation of Durge. This one is great too, but this one's a little bit more accurate to the, well, both of them are accurate to the comics, but this is a little bit of a different era from the Clone Wars comics. And as you can see for his arms here, he has flesh color, which at first when I saw this action figure, I thought perhaps it was a mispaint on Hasbro's part, but it turns out it's actually accurate. And at least some of the earlier comics, this is how he looked. So it makes me wonder if at one point Durge was supposed to be human instead of the species he is. Be something worth investigating at some point. See, he looks like he has a jetpack, 2 pistols he uses, and then he has like the medieval flail accessory, which is unique for this action figure, and then a rifle as well. You can see the elastic bands have kind of worn away over time. Separatist forces, Durge, commander of the Separatist forces. And for the back here, so this 2,000-year-old bounty hunter replaces Jango Fett as Count Dooku's right-hand man. A century before the Clone Wars, Durge was captured and tortured by Mandalorian warriors while trying to collect a bounty on their leader. Durge escaped and went into hibernation to recuperate. Shortly after the Battle of Geonosis, Durge awakened, seeking revenge, only to find that the Mandalorians were all but extinct. Upon learning that the Republic's clone troopers were created from Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett, Durge joined the Confederacy to enact his revenge upon Jango's clones. Along with Commander Asajj Ventress, Durge may be the one of the most formidable adversaries the Jedi Knights have ever faced. I greatly appreciate these descriptions that they put on these Clone Wars action figures. It pretty much gives a mini bio about the character that pretty much explains everything you really need to know on a basic level for each of these characters. It's not really something we get so much anymore, and the few times we do, it's oftentimes a very vague description of them, and maybe even very scene specific. It doesn't really tell you a lot about them, but if you're a person that didn't know anything about Durge, now you would, and you pretty much would know his entire backstory just from this description alone. And then you have the general one about the Clone Wars up here. Image of the action figure, and it looks great. Like I said, this accessory here Personally, so far, I think this one's probably going to be my favorite of all the accessories he has. It's just a very unique item, and of course, we do kind of see him use something similar to this in the Tartakovsky series against Obi-Wan. Other action figures in the line, I just did the video for Venturous, so would recommend checking it out. As for the rest of these action figures, I wouldn't mind getting several of these at some point. Anakin, I would like to get, especially if I ever get the Starfighter he uses in the original Clone Wars series. Arc Trooper would be nice, and yeah, all three of these I wouldn't mind having, but we'll see. And he's number 46. But I'll go ahead and get Durge opened up here, and then we'll see what he's all about. So I think this version of Durge is an excellent action figure. I'm happy I finally went ahead and got him. The second interpretation of Durge that I ever owned, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a perfect action figure. Yes, he's more limited in the articulation department, which seems to be the most common complaint among people for this, but I'm perfectly happy with it. In fact, he's got a little bit more articulation than I originally thought he did. We'll go over that here in a moment. But one thing I really like about this is he can actually hold all his accessories, and he has a lot of them. Of course, he has the rifle, this medieval, I know it's not a flail, I forget what the technical name of it is, but for the video, we'll call it a flail. He has his jetpack here, which I think is pretty much the same exact one he uses in that scene when he storms into the Banking Clan headquarters as Obi-Wan is capturing the Banking Clan, and he ends up being shot down. And then he has the two pistols as well, which can easily be holstered right there, as you can see. So that's something I greatly appreciate, is when an action figure can actually hold everything he comes with. But definitely a little bit of a different look for Durge compared to this one here. And it's a really good one. You can see the Mandalorian symbol on his chest there. Tell his armor has a lot of weathering on it, especially on the thighs here. Some various paint detailing with these red spots. Perhaps his blood painted on him, I'm not sure. In terms of the head sculpt, I think that looks really good. You can see he has a little bit of red just above his brow there, and then on top of his head. Maybe it's from him eliminating his victims. See, he has that shield around his neck there. It's like to keep the sun off him. See the backpack here. It doesn't come with any blast effects or anything. That would have been nice, but that's alright regardless. For these tubes here, I wasn't exactly sure what to do with those, but it does seem like on the back of his head, you kind of see there are two holes there, so I assume that they're meant to be plugged in. I think that's kind of interesting. It's almost like the jetpack's wired to his brain in a way. And then it looks like you have these floodlights here as well. Some big shoulders on him, which is pretty signature for Durge. Some red detailing on that as well. See the various gadgets on his arm here. You have that rotary guns there, and the extra devices here. You can see some of the wiring on his arms there. And Durge was enhanced with a lot of cybernetics, kind of similar to Grievous. You can see his hands. These two tubes here. And his boots, which are pretty heavy duty. And he does have cleats on, as you can see. He has a little bit of a hard time standing on his own, so definitely need to stand for him if you got one on hand. So in terms of the articulation, he does have a swivel at the neck. And something I didn't realize he had, but he actually has hinged shoulders here. First I thought he was going to have a swivel. That's pretty nice. Nothing in the elbows, which would have been nice for him to have. And same with swivel wrists. But no wrist articulation either. Yeah, nothing at the waist there or at the torso. And then he does have swivel hips. And nothing at the knees or ankles. But at least you can still get him in some nice poses. So in terms of the accessories, he has this rifle here, which does have a strap that can be unplugged from that peg there. As you can see. Holds it pretty well in his hand. Then we have the flail here. Really appreciate this accessory, and that's another thing I really liked about the Tartakovsky series is a lot of the medieval inspiration in it, like the lance battle and various things like that. In fact, now that I think about it, Durge does remind me of a knight in many ways, just from the overall design of his helmet and the way his armor is. And I have no doubt that was the inspiration, and a lot of knights did have this. I know there's a technical name for it, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But it's basically to protect the neck from being cut or anything like that. Then for the rest of his accessories, of course the jetpack, which is removable. And it actually has a pretty small peg there. At first, when I saw this, I thought, oh, that's probably going to have a hard time plugging in his back and actually staying in place. But so far, it's not too bad, actually. I haven't had any problems with that. In fact, I've had more problems trying to get these tubes plugged into the back of his head there. I think that's something I'll have to mess with a little bit more later on. At least you can kind of get it there. And then for his two pistols, the holster there, they do fit pretty securely. See right there. Oh, whoops. I think that was the tubes pushing it off. He does have some unique pistols here. And I'm sure they do fit in his hand all right. We'll just show it with. We'll take both weapons out then. And at least with his arms, they are sculpted in a drawing pose. So it shouldn't really look too odd with him holding these. Yeah. A little tricky to get this one in his hand there. Alright. See how that looks. And that looks really good. That's photo perfect right there. See what it looks like with the pack on too. Oh yeah, that's really good. I'll have to get the flight stands out here again soon and see how well he can accommodate with that. I think he'll do pretty good. We can definitely give him some nice poses with that. But I think that's pretty much all I can tell you about Durge here. Do some comparisons. Of course, him with the whoops. I guess they took out Anakin here. But comparing him with the comic pack Durge, both action figures are fantastic in their own way. Can't say one's better than the other. It's just down to your personal preference, and of course, if you're a big fan of the character, you're probably gonna want both versions of him anyway. The general consensus seems to be that the swoop bike Durge is probably the best one because he's the most articulated, and it's kind of hard for me to dispute that. And even though I don't have the action figure in hand at this time, I can tell it's definitely a great one to own, and I hope I have the opportunity to get that at some point. But one in particular I wanted to compare with him side by side. It's the Obi-Wan clone armor, and they look good together. And then of course Ventress is main peer leading the Separatist forces there. And just a better angle for Dooku. But very happy to have this Durge in my collection. Would I recommend him? I definitely would if you're a big fan of Clone Wars, the character himself, bounty hunters, anything of that sort. It's just a great action figure to own. If you can get over the lack of articulation, I myself have no problem with that. I know a lot of people do. If you can get over the articulation, then it's just such a cool figure. I'm really glad I got both Ventress and Durge here together recently. Definitely going to be some of the figures of the year for me personally, even compared to the TVC ones. But yeah, just have nothing but great things to say about him. And I look forward to doing some dioramas with him in the future. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for playing more in the future. There's always more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support, and check out the links in the description if you haven't done so already. And as always, thanks for watching.